G'day folks, welcome to tutorial 4 in this series of tutorials on how to use the OCC Weather Centre, a professional tool for weather analysis and forecasting. Today we're looking at satellite imagery that is available on the OCC Weather Centre. Once again, initially, we'll talk about this all the time, we need to enable the satellite layer. So initially you'll find a blank map of Australia, and we talked about that in tutorial 1, and you need to click the satellite overlay so it's highlighted and or bolden depending on your particular browser. Now what will happen here is it'll take a little bit of time to load up the images. I've had them preloaded, but you can see here how far into the image loading process you are. The longer the duration that you're going to use, and you have an option of choosing up to 24 hours worth of looping of satellite imagery, the longer it will take for the images to load. So just be aware of that if you are looking at longer term timeframes. Once again, very similar to radar, we have the opportunity to view the satellite at different speed levels, and obviously if you're looking at a longer term duration process, because satellite imagery comes in at every 10 minutes or so, we would probably, anything more than about 2 or 3 hours, I suggest that you use light speed or warp speed when you're looking at satellite imagery, where you can see a really nice clear indication of what's going on with the cloud cover across Australia. Satellite imagery is offered in infrared black and white, which is this on your screen there. It's also offered in visible black and white at 2 kilometre resolution levels. That's not a very high resolution for visible imagery, but it's what you find on the Bureau of Meteorology's website, for example. When we take a closer look at some of the better images available to us, we have the visible 500 metre imagery. This is much, much sharper than what you get publicly online, and you can zoom right into 64 kilometre levels at different location ranges. Now notice, once again, as we talked about in tutorial 1, the location ranges are blanked out because I'm looking at Australia. But the moment, let's say I want to look at Port Hedland, looks like there's some interesting things going on in Port Hedland, I can find Port Hedland down from my list here and click on that. And so here it is there, Port Hedland, and we can see now a lot clearer image of what's going on through the Port Hedland district today by using the visible 500 metre imagery. Now, satellite imagery at the visible 500 level will be offered to you at 64 kilometres or above resolution. Notice that there is no satellite when I click 32 kilometres, and that's because of the lack of resolution in satellite. Even this high resolution image that you're seeing here really starts to get pixelated once we get too close to it. And normally what I suggest is if you're looking at satellite, you're looking at it in the 192 to 256 to 512 range. That appears to be the sweet spot for satellite imagery on the OCC Weather Centre. Now you can see here that we've got other images available. The visible true colour infrared image shows us also the colours of the landmass and the water as well, which is a nice little backdrop to what's happening with regards to the cloud cover. It's not quite as highly resolved as the visible 500, but it's much better resolution than what's available publicly, which is the infrared 2 and visible 2. The rainbow, the IR rainbow image, gives us an idea of the cloud top temperatures. So what we can usually deduce from that is whether or not the cloud cover is thunderstorm related or whether it's light patchy rain related like it is here. We can make those inferences from understanding what the cloud top temperatures are. When we take a look at the Australian image, once again, we can see cloud cover features really obvious there of some convective clouds. So these are thunderstorm type clouds across the northeast Coral Sea, Solomon Sea, way up here around New Guinea, and way up here around Malaysia, just to the north of Indonesia. So we can see that those are most likely thunderstorm related clouds. These are most likely stratiform clouds, providing us with light rain right across large areas. Sometimes in these rain bands we might also see a little bit of lightning coming out of them with some mid-level based thunderstorm activity as well. We'll talk about lightning in another tutorial. Right, we've also got the visible imagery or visible infrared imagery, 2 kilometres at true colour as well. So once again, you've got the landmass colours and the water colours here on top of the cloud. But once again, we're looking at a low resolution image. So I don't really, if you're going to use this image, you may as well use this one. This one's a much higher resolution image. You can find these 2 kilometre images publicly for free, but the OCC Weather Centre is the place where if you want these higher resolution images, you need to use us for that. Water vapor imagery shows us the middle and upper atmosphere composition. So if there's quite a bit of moisture in the middle and upper atmosphere, it'll pop up here on the water vapor imagery. It doesn't show us how much moisture is near the surface, but it does give us an idea of where there's some deep dry air. So the darker the brown shading that you're seeing there, the more likely it is that there's a very dry patch of air, whereas the whiter shadings here suggest that there's a very moist patch of air. And certainly once we get into the greens, and you can see in the deep tropics, these purples, they're reflective of some high amounts of moisture through the middle and upper atmosphere. And cloud cover is just a really basic chart showing us where the cloud is, or the scope of the cloud cover. And it doesn't really differentiate well between low cloud cover, mid cloud cover, high level cloud cover. So once again, we'll only use this image as a real basic overview of where the cloud is. But if you want to look at more in depth at what the type of cloud it is, we'd start looking at the rainbow images, and then we'd certainly be looking at the visible 500 visible infrared 1K. The only other thing I would tell you is that the visible imagery, the 500 meter imagery, is not available at night. It requires visible light to actually operate, and so at night time, obviously, there's no visible light. So therefore, this will not operate for about 12 hours of the day because of the night time. So if we're looking at visible imagery, we can only sort of look at it from daybreak to sunset. Thanks for watching this tutorial on satellite images on the OCC Weather Centre.